Welcome back to the Fishbowl with Jade, where we sit in the conversations people whisper about in break rooms, vent about in group chats, replay in their heads on the drive home, and sometimes carry long after they leave the workplace entirely. And tonight's conversation is uncomfortable for a reason, because we're talking about boundaries, power, favoritism, emotional access, workplace friendships, social media, after hours relationships, and the blurry line between leadership and personal involvement. Because somewhere along the way, workplaces stopped feeling strictly professional and started feeling emotionally entangled. Managers hanging out with direct reports every weekend, leadership following employees online, private group chats, late night texts, drinking together after work, vacations together, emotional oversharing, selective access, inside jokes during meetings, and certain employees becoming personally connected to leadership in ways everybody else can clearly see, even when nobody says anything directly. And the question is no longer just, is this allowed? The real question is, when does connection stop being healthy leadership and start becoming a conflict of interest? Now, let's be honest from the beginning, because this conversation has layers and people are going to hear it differently depending on their experiences. Some people believe workplaces have become too sensitive. They think adults should be able to socialize however they want. They believe team bonding improves morale, friendships improve culture, and relationships naturally happen when people spend 40 plus hours together every week. And honestly, that there's truth in that. Nobody wants a leader who feels robotic, emotionally disconnected, cold, unapproachable, or impossible to talk to. Employees deserve humanity. They deserve communication, emotional intelligence, support, and leaders who understand people are human beings before they are productivity metrics. But somewhere between being approachable and becoming personally entangled, some leaders start forgetting something very important. Power changes every relationship, even when things feel casual, even when everybody's laughing, even when the environment feels friendly, even when it's outside of work. Because when one person controls schedules, raises, evaluations, promotions, opportunities, discipline, recommendations, or somebody's ability to remain employed, the relationship is never fully equal, no matter how relaxed it appears on the surface. That power never completely leaves the room. Not at brunch, not at happy hour, not in the club, not in the group chat, not in Instagram comments at midnight. And social media has made workplace boundaries even messier. Because now leadership has access to employees in ways previous generations never had to navigate. Now managers are watching stories, reacting to selfies, liking vacation photos, commenting under personal posts, seeing emotional breakdowns, political opinions, relationship problems, family struggles, financial stress, late night venting, and private versions of employees that maybe were never supposed to become part of professional relationships at all. And once leadership enters somebody's personal world online, objectivity starts getting complicated because now the boss doesn't just know your performance, they know your politics, your dating life, your habits, your friendships, your emotional state, your lifestyle, your insecurities, and sometimes even your trauma. And the question becomes, should leadership have that level of personal access to the people they supervise? Can employees comfortably ignore a boss's friend request without worrying how it might affect workplace dynamics? Can managers truly remain objective after emotionally connecting with employees online for years? Can a team honestly feel equal when leadership publicly interacts with certain employees far more than others? Because perception matters in leadership, even when intentions are innocent. And let's really talk about hanging out outside of work, because this is where boundaries quietly begin dissolving without people realizing it. At first, it feels harmless. Happy hour after work, birthday dinners, weekend brunches, concerts, trips, clubs, private jokes, late night conversations. And slowly, certain employees begin gaining more personal access to leadership than everybody else. Then emotional closeness develops. Then favoritism gets perceived. Then accountability weakens. Then trust inside the team quietly starts shifting. Because favoritism rarely announces itself loudly, it's usually felt through patterns. Who gets extra grace? Who avoids consequences? Who receives flexibility? Who gets invited out? Who leadership defends more quickly? Who gets opportunities and who has direct access? Employees notice those things long before leadership does, and morale doesn't usually collapse dramatically. It dies slowly through resentment, silence, disengagement, and employees emotionally checking out before they physically leave. Now, here's another uncomfortable truth people don't discuss enough. Sometimes employees don't actually want to socialize with leadership, but they feel pressure to participate because saying no doesn't always feel professionally safe. That's the hidden weight of power dynamics. When your boss invites you out, declining can feel risky, even if nobody says it directly. People start wondering, will this affect how I'm viewed? Will I seem antisocial? Will everybody else bond without me? Will opportunities stop coming my way? Will leadership take this personally? So employees show up anyway, smiling, participating, protecting the atmosphere. Meanwhile, internally, they may feel deeply uncomfortable the entire time. And some leaders never realize the pressure they create simply because they underestimate the influence of their own position. Now, let's talk about workplace culture itself, because some environments practically encourage blurred boundaries, especially startups, smaller companies, nightlife industries, entertainment spaces, sales environments, or workplaces built around family culture. There are companies where drinking together, partying together, traveling together, socializing constantly, and spending time together outside of work is viewed as essential to maintaining morale and connection. People call it culture, community, team bonding, family energy, and for some employees, it genuinely feels positive. Some people enjoy closeness with coworkers and leadership. Some friendships formed at work become lifelong relationships. Some teams truly feel connected in healthy ways. But for others, these environments create exhaustion because social participation quietly becomes tied to visibility, opportunity, and belonging. And the employees who maintain boundaries often become viewed as distant, difficult, antisocial, or not a culture fit. That's where things become dangerous. Because professionalism should never require emotional access to somebody's personal life in order for them to succeed. And honestly, leadership itself can be lonely. Some leaders slowly become emotionally dependent on direct reports because they feel isolated from upper management, unsupported at home, overwhelmed by pressure, or disconnected from peers. So they begin leaning emotionally on employees because those are the people around them every day. At first, it looks like venting, then oversharing, then emotional dependency, talking about relationships, marriages, loneliness, stress, insecurities, burnout, frustrations with executives, financial pressure, personal problems, and eventually employees stop feeling like employees and start feeling emotionally responsible for their leader's stability. That is not healthy leadership. Your direct reports are not your therapists, not your emotional caretakers, not your support group. Because once employees begin emotionally managing leadership, professionalism starts drowning under emotional obligation. And then there's the part people whisper about, but rarely discuss honestly: attraction. Because yes, sometimes leaders become attracted to employees. Sometimes employees become attracted to leaders. Sometimes chemistry naturally develops through long hours, stress, collaboration, and emotional closeness. People are human. But maturity is understanding that mutual attraction does not erase power imbalance. Because once romantic energy enters leadership dynamics, everything changes. Now, coworkers question fairness, question promotions, question opportunities, question protection, question motives. And even if the relationship feels consensual, power still shapes every interaction, whether people acknowledge it or not. That's why so many workplace relationships become messy, because emotions and authority rarely coexist cleanly. And let's not ignore another truth: manipulation can happen from both sides. Some employees intentionally get close to leadership because they understand proximity to power creates advantage: more visibility, more protection, more flexibility, more influence. So they become the favorite, the confidant, the employee always around, the person leadership emotionally trusts most. And eventually, the workplace starts functioning less like a professional environment and more like a social hierarchy built around access and emotional closeness. That destroys trust quietly over time. And maybe the most dangerous part of all is this: most people who cross professional boundaries do not believe they are doing anything wrong. It rarely starts with bad intentions. It starts with comfort, connection, loneliness, chemistry, ego, access. So wanting to feel liked, wanting to feel needed, wanting to feel understood. And little by little, professionalism starts fading without anybody realizing how far things have drifted until somebody feels uncomfortable, excluded, emotionally entangled, professionally compromised, or harmed. And maybe that's the hardest truth leadership has to accept. Being respected is more important than being personally liked, because leadership is not supposed to function like a friendship competition. Sometimes the most responsible thing a leader can do is maintain healthy distance, not because they dislike people, not because they lack compassion, not because connection is bad, but because fairness requires boundaries. Boundaries protect everybody. They protect trust, protect morale, protect objectivity, protect professionalism, protect leadership integrity, protect employees from pressure they may never feel comfortable admitting exists. So, tonight's fishbowl question is this: have workplaces normalized unhealthy closeness between leadership and employees in the name of culture, bonding, and connection? Should managers be friends with direct reports on social media? Should supervisors regularly socialize privately with employees outside of work? And at what point does relationship building stop being leadership and start becoming a conflict of interest? Thank you for sitting in the bowl with me. Now, let's decompress and return to the surface. The Fishbowl with Jade can be streamed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and Good Pods.